going to talk about this issue right now that's going on, and with all these protests and all these riots going on. So first of all, I want to say is that, give a little background. Obviously everybody knows what's going on with Libya and the protests throughout the whole Muslim world about this film, The Innocence of Muslims. So it's a pretty bad movie, pretty horrible, but nothing worse than I've ever seen before. You got riots throughout all the Muslim world. You got them in Indonesia, India, Pakistan, you name it, like 20 countries are rioting, obviously. There's a little information that needs to get out that's not, I guess, getting out. So first of all, each country is different. So for instance, in Libya, one of the main reasons for this attack has to do with, first of all, it's on September 11th. Second of all, American government assassinated the number 2 man in Al-Qaeda. So the attacks on the Libyan embassy probably has more to do with that than it has to do with this movie. This movie is kind of like the cherry on top of the sundae, but nevertheless, so in Libya we kind of have an understanding of why this violence took place. It was more or less in terms of retaliation, and even in Libya they didn't vote for the Muslim Brotherhood, but they elected a professor from the University of Alabama, and the western region of Libya, our approval rating is like 60%. So, and then there's also counter demonstrations to go against the radical Islamists in Libya. There was counter protests saying, hey, we're not violent, we're not these type of people. So there are peaceful demonstrations out there of Muslims who are countering this extremism. With that being said, you still see Sudan, them taking over German embassy, which has absolutely nothing to do with this movie. You're seeing it, and a lot of the people on the left will say, oh, well, there's a deeper issue here. They're responding to the criticism of American foreign policy, and this is just part of this larger issue. I disagree, because I saw numerous news sources. There's probably, out of all the news I've analyzed, there's probably only been 10% that had anything to do with American foreign policy. Most of these people I see are calling Obama a terrorist, not because of his policies, which are legitimate. Don't get me wrong, the drones that strike in Somalia are foreign policy. In Yemen, throughout the Middle East, there's a great article by Jeremy Scahill about the problems with drones in Yemen. Don't get me wrong, we have made numerous blunders throughout the Middle East in terms of foreign policy, from 1953 overthrowing the Shah, or not overthrowing the democratically elected leader in Iran till right now. So, been a dismal failure. Don't get me wrong, I'm quite aware of this. It's well documented in Noam Chomsky's Hegemony or Survival, and also his book, In Failed State. But at the same time, I'm not hearing anybody say, well, you know, our policy, I don't hear any of these protesters saying that. I just hear them saying, for example, there's one guy and one protester in Egypt, and he basically was saying, well, we're not going to attack the embassy, and we're not going to blame this all on America, but what we want is for them to round up the actors and the director and publicly execute them. I'm sorry, that's not excusable. First of all, there's a couple things that I want to address about this film in general. One of them is that all the people who were involved in the film, actors, they were manipulated into what the film was about. They all denounced the film. The original film was about a guy named Master George. Okay, it's a kind of a bizarre concept. No one had any idea that this film was about Islam or Muhammad. In fact, the word Muhammad and any references to Islam was actually dubbed into the film. Second of all, second point I want to make is that this film, which was made by a Catholic Christian, does not have. This is another misunderstanding that people have in Egypt and other places. These writers, is that the film was government propaganda. This is totally wrong. The government, Barack Obama has announced it. Only 10 people actually saw the film in the theaters, and some theater in Hollywood. Okay, so only 10 people out of 300 million. Okay, so one person's use of media to express a certain viewpoint does not represent everybody in America. Okay, the Westboro Church does not represent everybody in America. We have a concept of freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want. Now, some people counter say, oh, what would we say about the Jews? Or what do you say when we say something about gays or say something about Christians or whatever? Okay, let's go there. If you want to go there, okay, we could go there. Okay. There was a cross, okay? It was dipped in a jar of urine, okay? There was a painting of the Virgin Mary that was smeared in elephant feces, okay? Yes, there was some protesting here and there, but we're not going to storm an embassy. We're not going to storm a museum and destroy it simply because we're offended by what's depicted. I was watching clips about the Palestinian. There are imams saying that Jews are descendants of Satan. They're descendants of devil worshippers. It's not like saying certain aspect of, it's not specific. It doesn't take into consideration that Jews aren't monolithic in their ideas and what they think. No, it's all Jews. Okay, so but you don't hear anybody protesting that. You don't hear any Muslims protesting the depiction of Jesus, Moses, or any other prophet. Okay, you don't hear them criticizing that, even though these prophets are supposedly in the Quran and there's some respect. You don't see Muslims protesting the depictions of Jesus or whatever. I've heard worse in terms of free speech. Let me give you an example. There was a pastor who pretty much said we need to take all the gays and we need to put an electric fence around them so they can't get out, so they can't populate. Okay, there was a imam, or I think he was an imam. I'll get you the name if you want. But there was a guy on YouTube, okay, some religious cleric, right? And he was basically saying that we should kill gays. We should kill gays. Now, that's like pretty bad. So unless you guys go out there and protest that, I don't know why we should respect your criticism of us. Us for not arresting this guy who made this film, this absurd film. It's a horrible film, right? So the thing is, if you want your voice to be heard, there's other remedies for doing it. You know, in Australia, I saw signs saying anyone who's anti-Islam should be beheaded, and you know, these blasphemy laws are ridiculous on the surface. So there's other ways you can do to remedy this situation, right? So, for example, you could, and the thing is, this film's, it's hard because this film is like a little clip on YouTube, right? It's not like there's a lot of people involved in this film, right? So if this film was produced by Paramount, then you could go to the people, let's say this film was produced by Paramount Pictures, Paramount Studios or whatever, you could go to the investors, boycott the investors, you could, there's other things you could do in order to let your voice be heard. Obviously this is a bad movie, but at the same time, there's other ways to go about protesting it. And the worst part is that yes, you have a right to protest. Yes, you have a right to voice your opinion. But at the same time, what you don't have a right to is use violence to impose your ideas on others. Okay, so don't, you know, the attacks on embassies, the burning of, like, you could do whatever you want. I'm not offended. I don't get offended by much. I don't get offended pretty much by anything. I believe that you can say whatever you want. There was a cleric who, in response to all this, Abu Islam, who ripped pages of the Bible and said he would, maybe next time he'll have his grandson piano. You know, react however you want. Okay, do whatever you want. Just don't hurt anyone. That's all I'm saying, okay? So, you know, the thing you gotta understand is in America we have the freedom of expression. And a lot of people think some of the ideas in Islam are kind of ridiculous. So you may not like that, but that's how some people feel. And here's the principal point right here I want to address, is that even if you want to hold those responsible, go after them, kill them, or stone them, or you know, if you want to do something to punish the director, the problem with that theory fundamentally is that it's not going to stop them from thinking that way. You know, you can't force somebody to hold a certain opinion or belief. What you have to do is use arguments and use intelligence to counter that. So there was one example I think might be interesting, is that the Noor Party, Salafist Party in Egypt, is trying to produce a film to counteract that film that came out and show a positive light of Muhammad. So yeah, that's the bottom line. You can't force somebody to think a certain way, to speak a certain way. That's not going to stop it. You can't come to me and say, I'm going to force you to not say this. You could force somebody to not think certain negative thoughts about your prophet, but the truth of the matter is that that's not going to stop them from having that mentality. You could force the KKK to not have racist speech, but that's not going to stop them from thinking a certain way about black people or Jews. To agree that the film was done in poor taste and that its content is obviously objectionable. At the same time, let's not use this video as a reason for further inflaming tensions and further attacking people who have nothing to do with this film and becoming more antagonistic. Instead, what we need to do is say, let's look at this film, let's look at the content of the film, let's have a reasonable response to this film. The film makes certain allegations about Islam and Muhammad, and let's, if you're a Muslim, let's try to debunk those if you think it's wrong, okay? But let's definitely not go and use violence simply because you're offended at something. We in the West, or not we in the West, but some people use violence, but we believe in general in free speech, and using violence to counter something you're offended at isn't going to solve the root cause of the problem.